There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotion had an echo in so much space. When you out there without care, I was out of tune. But it wasn't because I didn't know, no. I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Possibly. I hope that you're having the time of your life. Think twice. That's my only advice. Who do you think you are? Oh, bless your soul.
Hey, everybody. Beautiful Wednesday afternoon today. And as is my custom, thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to spend a few moments with me here on SML TV. I'm over here at Simason Building, opposite City Market in the CBD, where everything happens, but nobody cares. Nobody, not a single person cares. We're out here living our lives. Every one of us is a hustler, okay? That's all we are. We're hustlers. We're glorified hustlers, guys. Hey, everybody. A few shout outs to you before I begin. I love to say hello to you, you precious people, you wonderful, precious people. Tell me who I'm channeling when I say that. If you get it right in the comments, I will highlight your comment. Whenever I say to you, precious people, who am I channeling, or who am I who am I mirroring? Not mirroring, there's a word for it. Not channeling, there's a who am I imitating? That's the word. When I say precious people, thank you. Hey, Lawrence, thank you. Honorable Jay, is that Jay or Joy? Because, I'm nearsighted. Joy Piri, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Mamuel. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much. Isaac Mambo, I see you. I do, brother. Brother, where are you? I see your comments all the time. I get confused. Sometimes I think you're here, and other times I think you're stateside in England. Where are you? Are you in the diaspora? This is one of our regulars, and I'm always so thankful to have him. Thank you, Isaac. Appreciate you so much. Hey there, Clara. Hi there. How are you? Thank you. Who's this? It's easy to tell that NPF missed the handouts. They don't believe in hard work. That is the absolute truth. I tell you what, listen, no truer words were ever spoken. Right there is the absolute gospel truth right there. Start. Okay, let's begin. Guys, as many of you know, earlier today, the NPF, the Notorious Patriotic Front, there's a faction, and this is the only way that I can describe this. There is a faction within the NPF that are trying to push this agenda of bringing back former President Edgar Lungu. And it's very stark, it's very clear, it's crystal. Okay, let's not make any mistake about that. Let's not tiptoe through the tulips. All right, let's not stand under a spiritual pavilion holding hands, singing Kumbaya. Let's just call it out for what it is. There is a faction within the NPF notably led by people like Raphael Hijacker Nacachinda, that scoundrel, number one. You've got Abena Given Lubinda, Abena Emmanuel Mwamba. All those guys are in this pot that are pushing this agenda. But here's the thing. This faction earlier today had what they called the Lusaka Provincial Minister, the Lusaka the Lusaka province welcomes Raphael Hijacker Nacachinda as the new Secretary General of the party. And what they've done essentially is that they've tried to smear butter on our faces. In English, it's called smearing butter. Although in English, the equivalent of that is trying to pull the wool over our eyes. In Zambia, we say, bata. Okay, it means the same thing. So the NPF, the notorious Patriotic Front, earlier today were trying to pull the wool over our eyes and trying to convince us into believing that Lusaka province had somehow welcomed this new imposter, this illegally installed Secretary General in the name of Raphael Hijacker Nacachinda, when we know good and hell well that that whole exercise that was being carried out over there at the Secretary was completely, totally funded by ECL Nabene. Okay, let's just be clear about that. ECL funded that whole thing. ECL being Edgar Chagwa, the former 6th president of Zambia, funded that whole thing. But here's the thing, guys. This is what you didn't see. And this is what they will never tell you. Okay? Now, remember, I'm 53 years old. This is not my first rodeo. I have lived through all the presidents, and I keep telling you this, and I'm saying this to you to demonstrate that I do have street cred to a degree. And here's the thing. I've known all the presidents since Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. I've had meetings with them. I've spoken to them. I've had one-on-ones with every single one. So I know what I'm talking about. This is what they will never tell you. Today, when the NPF were over there at the Secretariat, did you notice the big poster of come in, the big poster? I asked her to bring me some tea, and I'm just going to grab that real quick. Come in. Which is the sound of mommy. I need to fix my door. I do. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. That's hot. What they won't tell you, and you'll only see this if you have longevity under your belt. You will only see this writing on the wall if you are politically acute. You know the word acute? Politically tuned in, okay? Whenever you did you see the big poster of Raphael Nacachinda at the Secretariat, overlooking everybody? There was a picture of Edgar Lungu, a little small picture of Edgar Lungu, a small picture of former Vice President, our former Vice President. What's her name? I forget her name. Tell me in the comments. You know, when you're live, sometimes the names go. Former Vice President Inongawina. There you go. I'll get it right. And then there was this huge gargantuan picture of Raphael Hijacker Nacachinda. Now, some of you don't know that is a power play. You need to understand that. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. I know what I'm talking about. Whenever you see a political figure, especially within the context of the NPF, pull a stunt like that where he puts a big picture of himself, making himself visible, what that is that it is a power play. Now, here's the thing. Some of you may argue and you may say, well, maybe he was not the one in charge of the media aspect of it. Honey, he was involved at every step of the way. He, in fact, himself insisted, you better make a big picture of me and put it up the wall there. Do you know what that is? He's looking ahead. He's buying into his own self-deception, into thinking, one day, now that I have been illegally named SG, one day I might become president. That's his end game. That's the end game. And I must tell you, that as things stand right now, here it is, you've got the Savimbi ECL faction, and then you've got the Mao Sampa faction. And make no mistake, there are factions in this party. Don't be deceived. Don't be misled. Don't think that everything's peachy keen and that there's no trouble in paradise. Honey, behind closed doors, under the cover of darkness, that party is an absolute shambles. Why? Because it is divided. You've got these factions, and the factions will do nothing but multiply over time. Right now, this idea that is being pushed and advanced by ECL, he thinks that the people in the party can ignore the fact that 9 different separate candidates paid 200,000 kwacha each in an effort to be considered as presidential candidates on the NPF ticket. Never lose sight of that. And don't think for one moment that there are people who support these 9 candidates that are ignoring that. They're not. They're watching ECL very closely. And they're waiting for that opportune time to stand up and say, ECL, what the hell are you doing? What about these 9 candidates that paid 200,000 kwacha each? You expect us to sit here, ignore them, and watch you try to sabotage and elbow your way into a 3rd term. That's what we're dealing with. Now, guys, if you for one moment think that what I'm saying to you is insignificant, think about this. The Word of God says, a house divided against itself cannot stand. That's Bible. What are you going to do with that? That is the absolute truth. And that is what they are faced with. The factions within the NPF are faced with the reality that they are divided, and they are divided starkly so. They are divided divisively so. They are divided. They are so divided that they can't see west from the east. They can't. This is how bad it is. Now, all of this showboating, I was listening to Bowman. Bowman took to the stage, and of course, as you know, Bowman is so self-consumed, he can't see beyond his nose. You know what he was talking about? He went on stage and he was saying, and they've given me a very big position. In fact, this position they've given me is so big, it is mobilizing the whole country, which is going to cause this SG here to do his job, and eventually, which is going to usher in ECL. What? Big position? Bauman, you're a deputy. Okay? Let's be clear about that. I mean, this is the thing about these danda heads. On one hand, he knows good and hell well he's a deputy. Then on the other hand, he says, they've given me a very big position. In fact, this position they've given me is so big, it is the one that's going to usher in and make sure that this Savimbi Nacachinda delivers and the ECO retains. Our presidency, your presidency, my presidency, our presidency retains. These guys are trapped in a time warp. They can't see beyond their noses. These NPF clowns are dumber than a box of hammers. They don't even know their left hand from their right hand. They wouldn't recognize the sun if it stood up right in front of them. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. Now, guys, I also found it interesting. At some point, I saw Davis Mwila, who clearly looked uncomfortable. Okay, I mean, if body language is anything to go by, these clowns can deceive some of you, not us, honey. This is not our first rodeo. Honey, I'm 53 years old. I can read body language. If there's one person that is very displeased that his successor is Savimbi Nacachinda, it's about Davis Mwila. ba Davis Mwila ba me popo fi ba Davis Mwila para ma chika la padia ba identify ngo you ba salo yo because this chap is an outsider. Where was this Savimbi Nacachinda when we were in the trenches? When we were killing UPND people, where was he? When we were terrorizing the Zambian people, where was this Savimbi Nacachinda? When we were causing havoc in all the markets and the bus stations, and we were brutalizing anyone who wore a Manchester United t-shirt, where was this Savimbi Nacachinda? Lelo bamuitati bamuchita point as the SG. Get out, get out. What is this? That's exactly the body language that Davis Mwila was giving. That's the vibe he was giving off. And I also found it interesting. I don't know if you guys picked this up. I find this curious. I do. I find this curious that these guys were holding a meeting that they would never have allowed had they been in power. This amazing thing. Everything that took place today, everything they said today, none of that would have happened had they been in power and that the UPND had tried to do what the NPF did today. Because let's be honest, you guys remember, I'll never forget this. Some of you that may forget, because we never forget and the internet never forgets. You remember Davis Mwila made it very clear. He said, HH, I'm sending out a command. You are not to patronize the CBD. Did you know that HH was barred and stopped from going into City Market? Davis Mwila told his henchmen, in Zambia we say inchman, those NPF cadres, HH ngaisa feku City Market, there would have been a bloodbath. That's the truth. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not embellishing. I'm not augmenting. I'm not adding to anything. I'm telling you the truth as it is. There was a time Davis Mwila made it abundantly clear. He said, HH is not to ever be found in City Market. Now, had HH been embroiled in his own self-absorbed ego, had HH stood up and said, oh, I've got the right to go in there. Who the hell do they think they are? They're not going to stop me from going to City Market. I'm a Zambian citizen. I've got rights. I'm a president of I'm a president of a legitimate opposition party. I can go to City Market if I want to. Boys, let's go. Had HH decided to do that, my brothers and sisters, abantunga barifwa. And he knew that. Hagainde Hichilema knew that. He knew that if he showed his face in City Market, there would have been a bloodbath that would have made the movie 300 look like a picnic on a Sunday afternoon. That's what we're dealing with. And so I find it curious, I find it interesting that the same man who sent out this communique, and the SG during the NPF time was a very powerful force. I mean, all it took was just for him, because they had these people called commanders who reported to them. For example, the whole City Market had a commander who had 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 minions under him. All he had to do is just get one instruction from Davis Mwila. That commander was in charge of 5,000 youth. And they would rise up senselessly. No questions asked, no query, as long as the commander has said. That's what we were dealing with. And yet, here it is, today, September the 20th, 2023, under a new administration. Now, no, notwithstanding, they're not perfect, but under this new administration, the NPF can hold that event today without incident, without interference, without interception. Something that would not have existed. Now, I know it's very convenient for some of you to sit there, but why do you always bring up the past? Well, because we shouldn't forget. A person that forgets his history is bound to repeat it. That's the whole purpose of history, is to document the past so that you don't repeat atrocities. That's why some of you are so shallow-minded. You're just embroiled in, no, stop talking about the past. No, we're not going to stop talking about the past. Okay. Lastly, the thing that they consistently say, and it's a ploy, it's a trick. You shouldn't fall for this trick. They keep using this phrase. But why is he afraid of ECL? It's not a matter of being afraid. The fact is, ECL had his opportunity. And guys, we're never going to stop talking about this. The fact is, ECL served, elected twice, sworn in twice, served twice. The nation moves on. So whenever you hear an NPF person say, that is scapegoating. They're deflecting attention from the real issue. They want you to focus on something else when really they should be focusing on the relevant issue. And that is, you've already served. You've served your time. It's like in America. If Obama decided to run today and then people start saying, but why are you afraid of Obama? That's not the conversation. That's not the question. That doesn't even come into play. But in Zambia, it's so easy to mislead our people. All you do is just change the narrative. Just start talking about something else. That's not the conversation. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, you've served twice, you've been elected twice, it's time for you to move on. It's time for the NPF to start majoring on the majors and minoring on the minors. What's the major? The major is the convention. You can't put the cart before the horse. You can't be so presumptuous like Bowman foolishly did today. He's talking about ECL. And the only reason he talks about ECL is because he knows that perchance, it's an impossibility, but perchance, if ECL were to come back, guess who would be the number one beneficiary of that return? Bowman! So you see the reason why he does that. It's got nothing to do with patriotism. It's got nothing to do with love of country. It's got nothing to do with nationalism. It's got everything to do with self-preservation, self-survival. That's all it is. These guys are in it for themselves. They're not in it for the country. They're not patriots. What, you think these jokers are patriots? You honestly think Bowman is a patriot? You think Raphael Nacachinda, Raphael Savimbi, Hijacker Nacachinda, you think those boys are patriots? They're not patriots, man. They're a bunch of crooks. Every last one of them. All right. I thought I'd share that with you. Been speaking for about 20 some odd minutes. With this longevity, you have the credibility and authority to talk about the current state of the NPF. Yeah, it's stupidity not to talk about the past. And they constantly say, no, don't talk about the past. We will never stop talking about the past. Over there in Germany, over there in Israel, they never stop talking about the Holocaust. They don't. In Rwanda, they never stop talking about the 100 days of genocide. Why? Because we keep the past in check so that we don't repeat those atrocities. That's why. You couldn't have put it better. A bunch of crooks for real. You ain't lying, boy. Somebody's watching from Kitwe. NPF are crazy. They're absolutely insane. Yeah, I heard this analogy. Bowman said the football is 2-1 between UPND and NPF. Now, let me also say this. Guys, don't be deceived. Bowman has a very thin veneer of loyalty. You must know that. Okay. When Bowman steps up on a stage, he talks like he's a diehard NPF. He's not. He's when the lights go out under the cover of darkness, he makes secret phone calls to the guys in the UPND. Help me. Come on. Can we talk? What can we do? This is his MO. So don't be deceived. Bowman Lusambo has a very thin veneer of loyalty. Very thin veneer. So don't be deceived. All that stuff when they step on stage, you know, it's all thin loyalty. It doesn't even amount to anything. And then, you know, I saw by Emmanuel Mwamba, he was on stage. The number one thing that goes through by Emmanuel Mwamba's head is, so what the hell did I pay that 200,000 kwacha for? Why didn't someone call me up and say, hey, Emmanuel, your 200, don't bring it. You're wasting your time. If we're not kwata agenda, yes, therefore have your ECL. So you 200,000 do we shout out now. And interestingly enough, 200,000 kwacha times 9 is 1.8 million kwacha. The number of votes that the NPF garnered in the last election, 1.8 million. 1.8 million kwacha that was paid by 9 candidates. 1.8 million kwacha that the secretariat, the NPF secretariat, absorbed. No accountability. Nobody knows where that money went. Nobody knows how that money was spent. The only people that are direct beneficiaries of that 1.8 from those 9 candidates are the top brass of the NPF. The guys in the lower organs know nothing about it. Not to mention that they sold a piece of land for $1 million to a Chinese firm that belonged to the Zambia army during the time that the PF was in power. They illegally engaged Judge Muma to demarcate land, to put it in the NPF's name as owner on title. And they turned around when they lost the elections. They turned around and they sold that piece of land for $1 million. That party is liquid. They've got money running out of their ears. So don't be deceived when you hear them say, no, we are looking for money so that we go to the convention. Convention, my foot. I'll tell you what, that's the last thing on their minds. And here's the thing. Let me say this. Let me give you a bit of insight. This is what I believe. And hear me out. I want to hear you. I want you to tell me if you know what I'm talking about. If any of this sort of resonates with you. If they truly go ahead, because you know this agenda is being pushed, and it's being pushed very vivaciously. This agenda of making sure that ECL appears on the ballot. They're really pushing for this. It's not a fairy tale. If perchance they manage to do that, do you know that in 2021, we are going to have the most violent election that we've ever had? Why? Because then now you'll have a group of people that are loyal to ECL who would be the candidate on the NPF ticket that brings with him the same message of cadarism that existed pre-2021. So you'll have a bunch of cadres who will regroup and rally behind Edgar Lungu, and they will for a moment think, you know what? This is our chance. If we win this thing, we get to get our lives back. We get to have the life that we once enjoyed under ECL. We have an opportunity to regain that life. Therefore, they will kill, they will maim, they will butcher. By any means necessary, they will do everything within their power to regain power under Edgar Lungu. Why? Because it'll be a move for self-preservation. That's the goal. Well, you think they're doing this because they love Zambia? Is that what you think? You think they're doing this because they want to reduce the price of meal? Is that what you think? No, they're doing this because, number one, they're bitter, they're angry, they're jealous, they're upset that they lost to Hakainde Hichilema. Secondly, they're doing it for self-preservation. If we can get back to that seat, all of our crimes and misdemeanors are going to be washed away. and nobody's going to talk about them. All of our crimes are going to be thrown away in God's deep blue sea of forgetfulness. That's what they think. So that's the point. But it's not going to happen. It's not. All righty. This is a good question. Hilda says, but why do they want to bring back a rejected sacrifice? That's a good question. The plunderers of the state resources in the NPF have now convinced Zambians to think only about the cost of the bag of mealie meal. Yes, it's true. That's all people talk about. And yet Zambia is so multifaceted. That's all they talk about. And I don't believe this. Guys, you go to City Market. It's a lie. Yes, mealie meal is high, but it's a lie that people are starving. Nobody's starving. Who's starving? Nobody's starving. Just simply say the cost of mealie meal is high. Don't say people are starving. Nobody is starving. That is a narrative that's being pushed because of our nature as Zambians. Zambians are natural complainers. A Zambian, abama vendors, aba market, kutina kwanta purse full of money. Now wamwipusha. How are you? Yeah, na official pa. So panone akwenda panashikwete. You know why they do that? Because they know that if they feign poverty, if they pretend to be poor, you are going to reach in your pocket and give them extra money. It's a ploy, it's a trick. Nobody is starving in this country. Mealie meal is high. No one is going home hungry. I don't believe that for a moment. That's a lie. Now, you may argue, you may sit there and say, no, but well, how do you know that? Listen, I'm not saying that there are no poor people. I know that exists. But what I'm saying is that this narrative, this comment, what this person is saying here is absolutely true. They've managed to focus on this, latch on to this message of mealie meal being high, but the truth is nobody's starving. People are eating. People eat. Mealie meal's high, but we still eat. Not to say that they shouldn't reduce it. Of course they will, and that has to happen. But don't be deceptive and don't lie to yourselves and say things like, there is no famine in this land. Do you know what famine is? There's no famine here. Are you hearing that? You are foolish and you are naive if you think there's famine in this country. You know what Ichipowe? You know what famine is? Famine is different from hunger. There's no famine in Zambia. You, whoever you are, I spend my time with marketeers. I spend my time with street vendors. They are liquid, my friend. They're richer than you. They have more money than you. I can guarantee you that. These marketeers in City Market, every single day, about City Market. And then they turn around and say, no, they know that because if they complain, they can receive money. They know that it doesn't serve them if they say business is good and I'm okay. You will never, in town, you will never come across someone and say to them, how are you? And they say, you know what, I'm doing pretty good. Things are okay, not too bad. No. Why? Because our people have come from that history where if you complain, you'll be fed. It's like that old saying, it's the baby that cries that gets fed. If a baby doesn't cry, the baby doesn't get fed. Our people know they have the manipulative skill of telling politicians. You know why they did that? Because they knew when the cameras switch off, Edgar's going to reach into his pocket and give them money. But Edgar knew The former president is fully aware of those tactics. Am I the answer to your problems? Those women, those same two women, will kneel in front of Ediga. When HH comes, they will kneel in front of HH. Because they know they've got the manipulative skill. Don't play with Zambians. When it comes to that, when it comes to pretending to be hungry and poor, my goodness, it's a skill. And they use politicians. They manipulate politicians. Liyamwabapela bayakunganda bamokwe babulu babo twachika bepa ka candidate kalya kanshire inkwatenda la diva fulu mupesi bampela kona nga 20 pin ele wakaswa instead yakufumya zaza yakufumya zale ampela for 20 pin. That's how our people are. If no, listen, nobody else will tell you this. You know why? Because they don't spend time with marketeers and street vendors. I do. I've been spending time with these people for more than 20 years. I know how my people think. I know how they think. I know their MOs, their modus operandi. I know it. A up to Z, our people. All right. Well, I went off on a tangent. PF rebranding, own shot at the Secretariat. Wapia Vice Simon. Nga Vice Kwi. Wala bwele pobala ikala pesa. Nga Vice wala isa kwi. Don't promote foolishness. Nga wala isa kwi. Where are they going to come? That ship has sailed. Ship SHIP. It's sailed, literally. That boat has left the dock. Okay? Let's be clear about that. I hear you. Thank you. Well, hey, guys, thank you for watching. I've spoken enough. That's what? How long is that? I've been on 37 minutes. That's a long time. I got to go. Thanks for watching.
I remember when I lost my mind.
Bye.